So, good afternoon. We're ready to go? Good afternoon, everyone. So thank you for coming to our quarterly crime update. The mayor is going to lead off on this, and then what I'm going to do is answer some questions, going down some crime statistics. And then, as we take questions, we're going to make sure that you have all the leaders, as you can see here. And I'll introduce them as we go around the room, but then we can save it for questions towards the end. Is that okay, Mitch? All right. Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Chief. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Before we begin, I would like us all to take a brief moment of silence in honor of Officer David Lee, who was tragically taken from us in the line of duty last week. Thank you. Today, Chief Robert Tracy and his leadership team at the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department will provide an update on the crime statistics for St. Louis City for the last 3 months. I'm grateful to Chief Tracy and his team for their tireless work to further our vision of transformative public safety in St. Louis. The safety of everyone who lives, works, or visits St. Louis is my #1 priority, full stop. The health and the vibrancy of our city depend on our ability to work, play, explore, and get around without fear. As you'll see today, we continue to address crime at the root cause, holistically and sustainably, and we're seeing results. Together, the hard work of the SLMPD and our Office of Violence Prevention demonstrates that a 3-pronged approach of prevention, intervention, and enforcement can yield results. This also serves as an opportunity for us to continue to increase transparency in policing so residents can stay in the know and help be a part of the solution as we continue to see a decrease in crime in our city. All of the statistics and the information you hear today are readily available for anyone to find on the new SLMPD website. Simply go to slmpd.org and select Data and Reports on the homepage. You can also type in slmpd.org/stats. There you can find daily updated crime statistics, and you can even search by neighborhood. An informed public is a safer public. And while I have a lot to be proud of, while we have a lot to be proud of, I want to be clear. Acknowledging our progress is not the same as ignoring our issues. Some of the numbers you will hear today will be encouraging, and some of them will not. Either way, my administration, along with the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department, the Office of Violence Prevention, and our community and regional partners will continue to strive to make St. Louis safer for everyone. And I look forward to seeing you 3 months from now, and I'll turn it over to Chief Robert Tracy. Thank you for coming, and God bless. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. I want to echo the sentiment from Mayor Jones. St. Louis lost a tremendous officer last Sunday. We've been receiving messages across the country, and we're feeling the outpouring support, and we are humbly grateful. We are preparing for Officer David Lee's funeral, which is this Saturday. We will be sharing details with the community soon about how you can help us honor Officer Lee's life. Please continue to keep Officer Lee's family and the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department in your prayers. No doubt, officers are grieving, but even during a time of tragedy, officers are working to keep St. Louisians safe. It's what our fallen colleague did with integrity every single day, and what he's done for the last 2 decades. So thank you for all your support as well with the media. As we go around the room, these things, we talk about crime statistics, we talk about some successes, but we certainly have a lot of work to do. We have so much work to do. And keeping with Officer Lee's mission, we will continue to answer calls for service and do the work that we've been sworn to do, protect and serve the city of St. Louis. But that doesn't happen alone. It happens with the civilians, it happens with the sworn officers, the commissioned officers in the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department. It happens with the clergy. It happens with the faith-based community, the education, the health community, the health services community, civic associations, the community itself, non-for-profits. and of course our elected officials, and with the support of the mayor, we're seeing some successes. But we certainly got a lot more work to do. We got so much more work to do. And I'm going to go into a couple of things, but I'd like you to get to know some of the leadership team, that a very good leadership team that's responsible for helping with the officers and helping us find so many successes and continue the work that we've been sworn to do. But starting with New Public Affairs, Mitch McCoy, if over on my right, your left, is Mitch McCoy. After that, you see the laboratories. Mary Beth Carr, she's our director of a laboratory. Forensic sciences, DNA, all those things that we need to help us solve these crimes and get leads, ballistic information, NIBIN, that comes out of that shop, and they do a tremendous job. And they're at the best standards in the United States, and I appreciate the work that they do each and every day. You have, for investigative services that sees all investigations, you have Major Mike Mueller, who's sitting there in a plainclothes detective look outfit with a really nice tie on. And then you got Major Marisi, Special Enforcement, so it takes care of all the special operations of the department. After that, you have Lieutenant Colonel Mike Sack. Mike is overseeing Office of Professional Standards, which is internal affairs, force investigation, and make sure that we're doing things internally, and he does the audits and does the investigations and things we need to do to actually continue to build the public trust that we're doing things the right way for the public and then internally. After that, we have Ryan Cousins, Lieutenant Colonel. He supports Services Division, which really all the other things that we need, from right down to the 911 dispatches. He oversees the lab. He oversees certain other areas when it comes to things with the academy, training, cars, all the equipment, the things that we need to make sure it's done properly, get this job done right. And obviously, the mayor is right next to me. And then you got Lieutenant Colonel Lawson. Lieutenant Colonel Lawson is in a new position that we called Crime Control Strategies. So he's the Lieutenant Colonel. Crime Control Strategies is a position that is in other police departments, in a position that I held in the Chicago Police Department, and it's in and held in the Wilmington Police Department. Chicago Police Department has it, the NYPD has it. Very important role to take a look at the crime statistics, help break them down, help run the CompStat with your chief of police, and make sure that we're doing things that we need to do. And I'll get into some of the strategies that we're doing when I go through the rest of the presentation. After that, we got Lieutenant Colonel Renee Kreisman. She oversees all the operations, so the patrol operations, and also over the investigative operations. And then when we break things down, as we do, we break it down into smaller pieces, geographical responsibility. We have South Patrol, that's the 1st and 2nd District. And you'll see these on the CompStat reports when we break things out. But we have Acting Major Latricia Allen. So Latricia Allen oversees both the 1st and 2nd District. After that, you get Central Patrol, which is the 3rd and 4th District, which covers downtown, the 4th District, and just south of there in the 3rd District. And then what we have is North Patrol. And we got Donnell Moore. And Donnell Moore on North Patrol, he covers the 5th and 6th District. And that's up in the north end of our area. That's where we have the car that we're doing right now as a dedication to Officer David Lee. If you saw the car out there with the flowers, that's in front of North Patrol. And I don't want to forget about Pierre Benoist's name. So Pierre, we're not going to forget about you in Central Patrol. That brings you out even further, coming back to you. But Pierre Benoist is overseeing Central Patrol, which is that downtown area. And then we got Connor Kerrigan from the mayor's office, who's our communications director. So as we close out the 3rd quarter, there are signs of significant progress, even as we compete with a 10-year low in homicides. Overall crime is down 18% compared to this time last year. We're seeing a decrease in crime. We're seeing a slight increase in the number of shootings, and that's a trend that we're watching closely. We're down 15% in the number of shooting incidents compared to the same time 2 years ago. Juveniles being victim of gunfire is down 14%, but you got to remember last year we finished almost a 50% reduction. So we're making progress, but still way too many. Homicides year to date, as you can see on the screen, if we can go to this. Well, this is, you can see where we were. In 2020, we were at 205 as of this date today. 2021, we're at 147 homicides. 2022, we're at 154. 2023, we're at 126. And today, we're standing at 116. So we had a 10-year low last year, but we're trending about 10 homicides lower than where were last year in a comparative analysis. Still, way too many, way too many. We still got so much more work to do. I call it progress, going somewhat in the right direction, but we have 116 fatalities right now that we're looking to try to make sure that we can reverse that course and bring that number down even further. Firearms submitted to the lab. We talk about so many firearms that we're seeing in this city, and we've looked at too many people having firearms, poor conflict resolution skills, and a lot of the people that a lot of people that are shooting each other know each other. These are not random acts of violence. That can happen, but most of the people know each other or have some kind of association with each other, whether it's a beef, we saw a lot of domestics this year, we saw domestics last year, but what our detectives are doing each and every day, and the work that our officers are doing on the front end to try to prevent these things from happening, we're using everything that we can to leverage the technology we have in place to make sure it can help us solve these crimes and prevent them before they happen. And with that, one of the things that we measure in the United States, all police departments measure, how are you building public trust? And public trust is the community cooperating with the police department. And you talk about homicide clearance rates. Well, our homicide clearance rates as of today is 67%. We finished well over 70% last year. And the national average is about 50%. So we're well above national averages. And what that shows to me, more people, we're going to community meetings, we're gaining relationships with the community because we have the best detectives in the world and the technology, but we need the cooperation of the community to say, we're not having this anymore. And they come and cooperate with us and give us some of the leads that we need. And that shows that they're trusting us to make sure that they're coming forward to help us make these cases, to make sure we can bring closure to those families, and to make sure the bad guy is not out there going out, possibly hurting someone else and taking someone's life. So it's very important, those homicide clearance rates, and I really wanted to point that out. But overall, when you take a look at CompStat, could you put that CompStat sheet right back up? That CompStat sheet is, you look at a 7-day, you look at a 28-day, and you look at a year to date. 7 days goes the same time last year, and what we do is we look at patterns and trends that are emerging. This report is citywide. It also breaks it down to patrol area, and you met all the commanders of North, Central, and South Patrol. Then it breaks it down to the 6 districts, 1 through 6. And then it breaks it down to the 88 neighborhoods that we have. So we do this comparative analysis that we can get very granular, and we can take a look at patterns and trends, and we, right in this room on every Thursday, we have a CompStat meeting. And 3 days a week, we do an executive management meeting on crime Monday, Wednesdays, and late Friday. And each day, we're evaluating crime on what we're doing. And the patterns and trends, as you can see, 7 days, there are emergent patterns and trends. Are we going up? Are we going down? What's causing that? Then we go to the 28-day. Then you can really see if it's working, a plan that's going on, what we put in place. And then, as you can see, year to date, you talk about the numbers of where we are for year to date. CompStat is business management principles applied to police work, and it has 4 tenets in CompStat. Timely and accurate intelligence that's disseminated to all. Means you got to get the information, you got to make sure that you're accurately counting it, you got to make sure you're looking at those patterns and trends, and it takes us to the next step, where you have rapid deployment that's synchronized and focused, and it's shared with all, so that we're all on the same page of what's happening and how we're going to address it. Third tenet is you want to make sure that you have effective tactics and strategies. Long run, what's working, continue to do it. It's a long-term investigation. Is it narcotics on the corner that's actually causing an uptick in crime, to make sure we go after that narcotics issue? And the last thing in CompStat is relentless follow-up. You got to make sure what you're doing, you stay on top of. You don't make it an administrative exercise. You make sure that you continue to follow with the plan. If it works, continue to do it. If it doesn't, we're going to talk about it in this room, and we're going to adjust it to make sure that we can adjust to what's going on out there in the field to make sure we can get our jobs done. So, and there's other things that we're doing. If you look at the burglaries, they're the only thing that we're up year to date right now. And we've had several burglary investigations. And this year, when we looked at the smash and grabs, and we had some crews that were out there that were a little coordinated, doing this late at night, we were able to successfully arrest 5 individuals between the ages of 16 and 19 early this summer. And we're in the middle of investigating some of their associates, and other individuals are trying to do the same thing right now, and more arrests will be forthcoming. The thieves committing these smash and grabs cause thousands of dollars of damage, but often get away with a few bucks. And if you have any information about any of these burglaries, please, you know the number, please call Crime Stoppers. With the winter months ahead, please, one thing we ask as a public service announcement, do not leave your vehicles unattended, running, open, gas stations, when you're getting air, or you're leaving your car at the pump. They will take advantage of this, these kids. But the good thing is, more and more of these individuals are getting charged. When we make these arrests, good work by our officers, they're getting charged and they're held accountable. And hopefully we can start bringing that number down, change behavior of individuals that thought in the past they can get away with these things. That's not the case anymore. We're going to hold you accountable, and the rest of the criminal justice system is holding people accountable as well. And I think that's going to change behavior. It's not about arresting everyone, but it's about changing behavior of individuals not to go out and do the same crime. And then with all the efforts, we make sure that we're working with officer violence prevention. We're looking at root causes. One thing, when I came into the city and took over this job, the mayor already had an officer violence prevention in place. And then we're looking at things with the east-west gateway. And we're looking to go after, looking to look at individuals and work with them to make sure those with the highest propensity for violence, what is going on in their lives, so that we can at least get to them, say they're not going to continue to do this, but we're going to have more of a voice of the community, and we're going to be offering services. And that's called focused deterrence. And that's through a national network of safe communities, through David Kennedy and John Jay College of Criminal Justice. That has been something that works well with law enforcement, where we have a balanced approach to make sure that we're getting to the individuals so they don't have to go out and reoffend, and we can make them and help them get to a place where they could be part of a productive society when they go back into the community. And those are the things that we're looking at. Finally, before we take questions, tonight is National Night Out. We'll be hitting dozens and dozens of locations throughout the city. And you've seen them go up. I don't know if they should be up on our website, so you can see where people are having the National Night Out, where all of us, they'll be back in patrol uniform. We're all in dress uniform right now. But when we go back out there, each one of the commanders, the majors, the lieutenant colonels, myself, we'll be hitting locations in our respective areas. I'll go all over the city, but I want to make sure that we're in this together, and that's about working with the community, building the trust, going to every community meeting, and that's really what's making a big difference. There's no strategy in the world will not work without the community involvement and the cooperation and a partnership with the public. And those are the things that I see that are working, and we're getting better and better at it coming out of the pandemic. Coming out of the pandemic, we can get together for those meetings. So I think at this time, we'll open up to some questions.
How are things with hiring officers? Where does that stand, and where does those numbers look like right now?
So I believe right now, I looked at the number of the day. You got to remember, it's a little dynamic. Some leave. I've been swearing in officers from other jurisdictions. I'll get to that in a second. But I think we're around 900, which includes the recruits that are in the academy. We have a class that's graduating in November. I think it's about 14. We have a class that's in right now. Should be, the amount that just showed up should be about 24, 25. Sometimes they drop out when they get into the academy. And then we're looking at December, where we're looking at putting another academy class in. And the good thing that what's happening, and through the mayor's support, some of the things, our business model of attracting officers and bringing them in, first, economics. Officers were leaving this jurisdiction because of pay. And the mayor recognized this, and last year we had a collective bargaining agreement where at least we became competitive with the surrounding jurisdictions. And this year we're right in the middle of contract talks on an economic reopener to continue to stay competitive. What that has spurred, there's so many people that left this police department. I've sworn in 23 police officers that left our jurisdiction and now have come back, and they've come back, and that's as big as academy class. So that's number one. People are coming this way. We changed the rules that you can have post-certification from the state or outside the state. We will vet it very well. We will now, for the first time, be taking officers from other jurisdictions where everybody was taking our officers. We're going to do that now. We had a campaign to make sure that we have, that we saw the billboards. That gave us the largest amount of applicants that we've had in several years, and those are the ones that we're starting to vet to make sure that they're eligible to be police officers, and now we're going to put them through that type of training. I think that all matters, and I think the last thing, and this is where we have a charter, we have a civil service commission, and working with the mayor's office and also working with Department of Personnel, they still have the oversight. But right now, we're competing against so many other police departments for a small amount of pool of police officers. We actually, when we get the applicant, we call them the same day. We call them, if not the next day. Sometimes we're waiting a few more weeks, but we don't have that luxury anymore. We don't have a list to pull from. We don't, and there's not a department out there that has a list to pull from. So we got to change our business model. What we've done another hiring manager in our building, working with our human resources, and we're calling them the same day, capturing the environment. We're having pre-academies where we're teaching them how to go through the academy. We're setting them up for the tests. We're showing them how to do these things. We're trying to set them all up to fail. Because if you become part of this family, this is a good place to work. And the best recruiters of any organization, including policing, is the people that work in the department themselves. So as we're starting to move forward in this department and starting to see some of the changes and coming out of the pandemic, we're our best recruiters, and a lot more officers are getting out there and telling people, come to this job, it's a good place to be, and the economics are now competitive.
You mentioned the 900, Chief, but that includes those in the academy. How many are commissioned walking the streets?
Well, commissioned, I'm a commissioned police officer, so I'm out on the street, so depends how you're asking that question. We have 24 in the academy, 14, so minus 38, you could take that down to the number of commissioned police officers. Like I said, that number's dynamic. I think this week, Friday, I might be swearing another police officer in, and some might, and we also have a person that's retiring. So don't hold me to the exact number. I'm gonna give you approximates, because every day I look at it, it changes. But it stays, that's somewhere where the number should be.
Chief, what is the progress when it comes to repeated juvenile offenders and youth violence in the city? What has worked and what has not worked since you've been here?
Well, do we remember the Foundry last February? There was an incident where some juveniles were arrested that were out late hours. And then at the same time, when the officers made arrests, they were breaking into cars. At another time, another car passed by, and then there were shots fired at our police officers. So it looked like the two kids that we arrested, we did release back to their guardians in the street. And it certainly came a cry, why are we doing that, when they just shot at the police officers? There was different individuals. They could have been associated. We couldn't prove that. But when you're out, and you're out with firearms, and you're out late at night, this is when we pick these kids up. We put an MOU in last year, and it was covered in the news media last year. We did it pretty quickly with the juvenile courts. And we actually wanted to make sure that we followed our policy right. We updated the policy with the juvenile courts and the Juvenile Justice Center, and we made sure that we can bring these juveniles in, because we got to figure out what's going on with them. We got to figure out if they're out late with a firearm late at night. We want to get them the help, and you can't get them help if you release them in the street, because you're going to release them to a guardian in the street, but you don't know what's going on with that family. So some of those things started to work. Some of the things, our juvenile shooting incidents actually went down, because I think the system now was actually changing behavior, that you're not just going to be released in the street if you're out late at night. And also, it actually puts some accountability back on the guardians. The other thing that we're doing right now, which the mayor signed into law, is that we're able to have a concealed carry, if you have to have a concealed carry permit, to open carry. So the state law had allowed that. We were able to put an ordinance in that the mayor signed off on, that if you don't have a concealed carry permit, you can't openly carry in the city. So we can approach you, we can summons you or arrest you, depending on the circumstance. If it's a stolen gun, if you're resisting arrest, you have other charges, or it's armed criminal action. But we can approach these it's changing behavior, and now we can confiscate that firearm, because anyone under 19 by state law cannot get a concealed carry permit. So therefore, by that, and we're allowed to approach through state law with anybody with a firearm of any age, as a commissioned police officer, to approach an individual and say, can I see your concealed carry permit? Usually when you approach a person that doesn't have a gun or a concealed carry permit, is not really going to, is going to act in a different way, might run from us, might drop the gun, might resist, and there's certainly other charges. A lot of these guns are stolen that they're carrying. So right now, that word has gotten out, and then when we bring them into the Juvenile Justice Center, we're actually gonna hold them, wait for the parents, we're not gonna release them in the street. So that has changed, where sometimes they ask us to call X-book them in the street. It's not perfect, we're still working on some of the kinks, but more and more now, they're being held accountable when we bring them into the Juvenile Justice Center. And I think that's making a difference, where now they just can't the children cannot be running around open carrying in our city. It's against the ordinance, and we will follow up with individuals.
Chief,
you have
you
a
said that
ballpark
you
on.
could make the arrests or could issue the citations. Do you know how often your officers are using that new ordinance to either cite or confiscate a gun that someone is carrying without a concealed carry permit?
It certainly makes us able to approach an individual, especially if we see with reasonable suspicion from our experience that that person's a juvenile. A lot of times it does lead to other charges. Don't get me wrong, we're absolutely, there's armed criminal action that we already have. You're committing another crime with a firearm, that's an additional charge for carrying a firearm, even if you had it illegally, but if you're gonna commit a crime with it, that's an additional charge. Those numbers I would have to get back to you, of the exact numbers, but I know we're using it more and more, and even when we looked at 4th of July, when we had a lot of juveniles that were out there, you gotta remember, we made 39 gun arrests that week after 4th of July, and we made 21 downtown. And a lot of them, Pierre, a lot of them were juveniles.
Correct.
And those are some of the things where we made sure, can we get them into the system on an ordinance charge? And a lot of these guns, once they're stolen, that's an additional charge with a juvenile. We've obliterated serial numbers. We find out when we test fire these guns are actually been used in other shootings. That's why National Integrated Ballistic Information Network is so great, and that's why we use ShotSpotter here, gun acoustic technology. That's why ShotSpotter is so important, because even on when no one's hit, when we pick up those shell casings, we have evidence, we have video. If that gun's ever used or used at another scene, it actually gives us people that might be involved in the violence, and that's helping bring in trigger pullers off the street. So guns are a big issue, and how we can address people with guns, while we're staying within state law, but we have an ordinance now that can help us out, and at least address where we talk about the juvenile issues that were brought up. And I think, and that's about protecting these juveniles. A kid carrying a gun is at that age, anybody carrying a gun at any age, but your frontal cortex is not developed to at least 26 years old. Do you really want 13, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds running around with open carry guns? It just doesn't make sense to me, and it's not done in other cities, and we're trying to restrict that in our cities properly and using this ordinance.
Chief, you noted that shootings are up 7% overall, and I was looking at the stats this morning, and it looks like that's mostly accounted for in the 3rd and 4th district. So I'm curious what you're noticing about that trend and what you're doing about it, if anything.
So I talked about this room, CompStat. We meet with the 3rd and 4th district. We all meet together. We look at areas that's happening. We're looking at individuals that happen. Sometimes this can be. We saw a lot that some of these shootings that were happening. Some of them are domestic. Some of them know each other. So, and then some of them can be over. Some have been over narcotics, but it's not overwhelming over narcotics. But when we start to see those type of situations and where they're happening, we do directed patrols in those areas. We look at where we can be at the right time. But some of these individuals we start identifying, and then we can actually start to look at who are the ones with the highest propensity for violence, and then make sure that who their associates are that are in that. And some of them are going to go out and continue to commit crime. So we actually know who a lot of the players are. And then when they do the shootings, there's information that comes with that ballistic information where there's things left at the scene. And the forensics, we're getting a lot more trigger pullers off the street on non-fatal shootings and or fatal shootings, as you saw the clearance rates on the homicide. So what we have to do is we have a plan. We try to find out what's going on, who's involved, who's the witnesses, what is the area, and basically we work every investigation as it. That's why you have non-fatal detectives in each district, because then you have robbery detectives, you have burglary detectives, you have low felony detectives. But that's why we prioritize it, because carrying firearms and using it is a dangerous thing in this city, and we're going to continue to work on it. We investigate them fully, and hopefully, what we continue to do, hopefully it'll start to come down towards the end of the year and into next year.
Well, I have two questions, one for the mayor and then for the chief. First, Mayor, the number of homicides down in the city of St. Louis, and as you mentioned, one life is too many. But can you talk about the incredible work that the police department is doing, and how the community must continue to work, help bring these numbers down? And then second, chief, can you talk about how officers put their lives on the line every day, and we just had an example with the officer, David Lee.
Absolutely.
Mayor.
Well, as I said earlier, while these numbers are encouraging, it's not a time to celebrate. It is a time to applaud the work of the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department, as well as our partner organizations, our Office of Violence Prevention, and the many organizations that we fund on the ground, because we realize that people closest to the problems are closest to the solutions. And so it's an all hands on deck approach. All of these things are working together to collectively reduce violence. And also when the police department is able to increase its closure rates, as the chief talked about, it was close to 70% last year. That gives the public more confidence in our police department, and it also brings them closure. So we're rebuilding trust in our community, and letting them know that once we get this information, we work as hard as we can to solve these crimes and bring them closure, but also working with our partner organizations, our OVP, our police department, collectively to bring violence down.
And thank you for that question about our police officers, the tremendous job they do each and every day. I want to commend the officers in all police departments in the United States, but more specifically the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department. You know, we often talk about people leaving the profession, people going to other jurisdictions. I want to celebrate the officers that stay. You know, some can retire. It's a natural retirement. I retired from the NYPD in 2007. But you do have retirement, but I didn't leave for another jurisdiction. Maybe I did leave for another jurisdiction, sorry, but I retired from that organization. But these officers, they stayed because they care about this community. And they go out and do their job each and every day. And they were under tremendous pressure. I mean, you can go back to this region, and you can go back to Ferguson. We can go back with Shockley. You can go back to the pandemic and everything that happened after George Floyd. This place has been going under a lot of duress and trying to build trust with the community for 10 years. For 10 years. And these officers stayed the course. They continue to want to serve the community. And they have a lot of choices. They can go to other places. But they love doing the job in this city, and they love doing the job for the community, because this community really supports the police. And when I first came here, we were allowed to start to go back to community meetings. And one thing that we do, we go to every community meeting, and we bring from our lieutenant commanders, we bring our majors, we bring the officers that work the street, not just the liaison. And officers, when I first came here back in 2023, in January, we started doing it. We introduce our officers. And the community either claps or gives a standing ovation. And the officers, really, there's a silent group, it's a majority, that overwhelmingly support the police in what we do. And the officers see that, and that's what keeps them going. I also applaud them because when they were making arrests in 2023 and past for several years, these bad guys were not being charged. They were taken under advisement, and there was almost 6,700 cases where these officers were going out each and every day making arrests, and they were arresting the same person over and over who's never going to be charged. And now that's changed. So now what they're doing, and then when I talk about these guns, that's an armed confrontation. When my officer and we're asking, or our officers here, and we ask them to go out, and we take a look at people who are carrying guns and people that are doing dangerous things with those guns, that's an armed confrontation every time an officer approaches that individual. We don't know what's in their mindset, and our officers have to do that day in and day out. So proud of them, so proud of what they continue to do. Proud of the people that are coming on, the ones that stay, that dedicate their life, and I've worked in 3 other police departments. This police department is second to none, is what they do out, and especially with the gun issues that we have in the state, and they do it each and every day, and they do it bravely. Very proud of what they do, and you know, I'm very honored to be here, to be able to be their police chief because of the work that they continue to do. We got so much more work to do, but that's what's going to keep bringing more officers in. Retention, less so leaving right now, and I think that's happening for a reason, because I think there's a lot of hope in this city. I think there's a lot of changes in the city. There's so much things that are happening in the city, what the mayor's doing, with the economics, with people investing in the city, and we're going to be there for them. We're going to make sure we try to keep everyone safe.
Chief and Mayor Jones, I was curious, Greater St. Louis announced the expansion of the Downtown Ambassadors Program, or the reboot, or whatever. I was curious how that will help you, Chief, and what that means to you, Mayor Jones.
Well, again, that talks about our all hands on deck strategy. We can't just put crime solving and violence prevention on the shoulders of the police alone. They need the community, they need our corporate partners, they need our philanthropic, civic, faith community. Everybody has a role to play in making St. Louis safe. And we thank Greater St. Louis Inc. for stepping up and bringing the Downtown Ambassadors program back.
And when it comes to the downtown ambassadors, we all know the economic engine of this city. We don't want to lose businesses. We want to continue to bring businesses in, and we want to make sure people are safe when they come to work, safe when they're tourists, and safe for our residents when they want to enjoy downtown. So we all get to do it, and also that economic engine. If we can make sure that we can make things safer downtown, that also creates the jobs for everybody in the region. So everybody benefits from that. It's not downtown versus other parts of the region. Downtown is the economic engine that we all use to do these type of things. And these ambassadors, it's just seeing another person out in an official type of jacket that actually can just go up and you can ask them questions. It makes people feel safer. It's more presence down. It's an omnipresence that's down there. We're not asking them to do the job of police officers because we already know the type of training that has to go into that. But it certainly is a force multiplier of people that are officials that care about downtown and the investment they're doing it. And it actually will make people feel safer when they see someone on the corner, when they see a police officer or they see someone in an ambassador jacket, that they know can go up and can communicate right away with us if no one can't call 911 at the right time. Or their eyes and ears, additional eyes and ears for the police department and government to make sure we're addressing things properly.
But if you've seen some of your officers in the crossfire of guns happening downtown, are you worried that they are unarmed, that they are uniformed people in downtown trying to secure that area when your own officers have had their lives at risk too?
You know, it's been sensationalized, a couple incidents downtown, but when you take an overlook at what's going on downtown, if you take a look at this report, you can pull it up by neighborhood, downtown or downtown west, if you want to look over it coming closer to, we're down 50% in overall crime compared to where we were 2 years ago. That didn't happen by accident. And now building off it with these ambassadors, you know, they're not going to engage with individuals with firearms. That's not their job. Their job is to report. They're not to be engaging, as I wouldn't ask any person in the street to engage with them. That's our job, and to call us immediately and let us know what's happening so we can get there and we can try to interrupt whatever is happening. So I think the biggest problem still is the too many people with guns being able to carry them, but we're not going to ignore that. We're finding ways to address that. But those individuals, their job, just like a security guard, is not to take action on a person that might have a firearm. So they're instructed, so we instruct them to stay safe. And I think it's minimal compared to a police officer, different uniforms. We have a firearm. We're going to go to that issue. They're going to call. They're not going to intervene on something like that because they don't have the training and they actually don't have the equipment, but they also can be eyes and ears. So we're not expecting them to get involved in that type of thing. Whole different dynamic compared to being a police officer. Our police officers are trained and have to deal with those things, and that's why they get the additional pay and compared to what a security officer gets.
Chief Tracy, are the officers eligible for the ambassador program? And I think you had said that you were reviewing secondary opportunities for officers. Where would that stand?
For clarification, are you asking about the officers working secondary as an ambassador?
Yes.
I don't think we've had anybody apply to be an ambassador. There's a lot of secondary that's out there right now for our officers to work. I haven't seen anybody sign up to be an ambassador. I'd have to take a look at that. So, in all fairness, I have to make sure that I'll take a look at that. But nobody has, to my knowledge right now, has signed up to be a secondary, because I'm not too sure that's one of the things that there's insurance issues, and if they've signed up, and they're approved vendors, and each and every approved vendor, the Office of Professional Standards looks at that we can let officers work at, and I'm not sure right now through the ambassador program. And that would be Lieutenant Colonel Michael Sack from Professional Standards can answer. So I don't think they're an approved vendor that we can work right now.
Not that I'm aware of.
Right. So they have to have certain insurances that if we work secondary as a police officer, I'd have to take a good look at that. But that's a great question. But I don't think any officers are working at it at this time.
And I believe the public safety ambassadors are unarmed.
Right.
our officers are armed and have full police powers while working in a secondary role, and can arrest people and can act as a law enforcement officer.
Chief Tracy, we've seen an uptick in a lot of the car break-ins that have been happening all over the city. What preventative methods or measures can you put in place to help stop some of the car break-ins?
Well, if you take a look at the statistics, still too many, but we're actually down. We're down with the felony thefts, which come into car break-ins, and then misdemeanor thefts for the city. So when you extrapolate that information, our car thefts are actually, our car break-ins are down. What we need to do is we have to hit it from different approaches. You heard me open up, not even getting cars stolen, but don't leave valuables in your cars. Don't leave guns in your cars. Don't come to a sporting event. And then that's what these individuals are looking for. That's why we have stolen guns out there, because they're not secured properly, and people, a lot of them are being stolen out of these cars because they're not being secured properly. I think if you want to have the privilege of owning a firearm, then you better lock it up and keep it safe so it doesn't get in someone's hands that can be used on someone and then cause some of the problems that we've seen. What we do when it comes to events, we make sure that anytime one does happen, we do a proper investigation on that. But when it comes to sporting events or any areas that we've been in, we're working with other jurisdictions. We look at plates. We use license plate reader. We use video. We use real-time crime center. We work with our other jurisdictions. Just us in U City had a person that was breaking into cars, both in our jurisdiction and their jurisdiction. We were able to trace that car going back into their jurisdiction, and over an overall investigation, we were able to make an arrest on an individual who was breaking into it. Probably accountable to dozens and dozens of car break-ins, and that was a couple of months ago. But we do this every time. We take it seriously because, you know, quality of life is also pretty important to us. The last thing you want to do is come out and see that your window's broken in your car. So we can work together on this. We're going to continue to make the arrests on these, follow up on the investigations, and I think what I talked about earlier is that, you know, in the past, no one was being held accountable. They were getting in, we arrest them, they get back out. Behavior's changing, and when we can get multiple charges against individuals or groups that are doing this, we're going to make sure we do that. Sometimes they're juveniles out late at night. When we do make arrests on them, we'll make sure that we get them into the juvenile justice center so we can get them the social services and the work to see exactly what's happening in that home environment. Why are they out? Why are they doing this? And who's watching them? So,
3 more questions.
Chief, can you explain how shooting incidents and victims are up, but murder is down, and even going back to 2021, you know, murder is down significantly, but shootings are flat from that year? Is it, are fewer people shooting to kill? Is it just luck on the victim's part?
yeah, the dynamic usually when shootings and homicides sometimes stay together. When the shooting incidents go down, that's why it's so important. We're in 3 days a week. We look at every shots fired call on our executive management meetings. We look at all NIBIN information that comes back from picking up the shell casings, and we want to make sure we get that trigger puller, because we're seeing the same type of gun, the same gun being used at several different places. Not all with a non-fatal shooting or a homicide, but sometimes they use a celebratory fire. Sometimes they shoot at a rival's house or a beef that they have someone's. So when you see this, this is somewhat, it's about 7%, 6%. So the number is not large, you really want to see both of them going down. But I think staying on top of behavior of individuals who know we're picking up the shell casings, we're making sure we're tying into people that have done other shootings. Hopefully it'll just start going in the same direction. And, you know, the homicides keep coming down because I believe there's individuals that will go out and continue to shoot and continue to do this type of crime out there because, you know, they're running around. But our detectives are doing a great job on non-fatals and fatal shootings. That the people that tend to use it to kill somebody, we're making those arrests on those individuals. So a longer period of time, the longer we continue to do this CompStat report, we can dig into some of the numbers. But I'll take the one, I'm not happy with 114, but we're trending less than last year. And the biggest thing in CompStat is to make sure you look at every shooting and make sure that you have a proper investigation to try to resolve the shooting so that person doesn't go back out there again. So, yeah, you saw the numbers up a little bit, but you see it's even, and it's from 2 years ago, it's down. So last year, we did very well last year. If it's somewhat closer going down, that's where I want to be. You're not seeing a big spike.
Chief, can you talk about the 3 women struck by a car and injured in downtown
Yeah, I'll hit on the patrols and everything, but Major Pierre Benoist, he has all the information, so I'm going to let him answer that question. Major?
Thank you.
Is it possible to be by the mics?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem.
Peter, you can have my seat.
No, you
Gladly.
Appreciate it.
Yes, no problem. Good afternoon. Yes, we got a call for aggravated assault this morning at 1:43. It was for an accident and shots fired at St. Charles and 20th Street. The actual incident took place at Club Dream at 1918 Washington. There was a dispute inside the establishment, which spilled out to outside, and there were several females fighting outside. And throughout this fight, a car drove by and struck them, who we believe was involved with the earlier disturbance inside the event. We do have a vehicle and a person out wanted for that currently right now. And just a little history, we've had 5 calls year to date at this location, which is not really bad at all for an establishment. And they do have all the proper permits, alcohol, everything else is proper. We checked on all that this morning.
Do you know if the women have been released from the hospital?
I do not know, but they were in stable minor condition when last night, early this morning, when the officers left the hospital.
And have you seen that uptick? It seems we've been covering many fights that have turned close to deadly or deadly. Anything that have you seen in the patterns? I know you guys were talking about conflict resolution and whatnot. Is that something you've been seeing?
We haven't seen it a whole lot. I mean, what we have seen is our problem properties, working with them in City Hall. They've really taken a big step forward in addressing some of these. Like, the first thing we check every time is, like, do they have the proper permits, their licenses? And then we'll do an investigation on that, and we'll take the steps to try to close the establishment if needed. If not, then, you know, we meet with them daily, say, these are the calls for service. What are you doing? Are you hiring security? How about you close a little bit earlier and stuff like that?
There's a lot of steps that will go into that and that conversation, and that's where the majors come in, the lieutenant colonels will come in, and they'll have a deeper conversation. But if they don't see progress being made, then that is fully our right to step in a little bit more with problem properties and say something more significant needs to be done.
And I think the question that you asked, additional patrols downtown, so I know you're not gonna let me get off that easy. Right? So,
Yeah, if you can talk about that. And
Yeah.
are you looking specifically more at downtown west, or overall has been downtown been that
No.
priority?
So when we talk about the officers getting back on the street, we do an evaluation of, you know, when we look at the districts, we look at calls for service, we look at population, we look about violent crime, and then we make sure we keep things balanced. So we are down officers, but that means we're not surrendering. We're making sure we answer our 911 calls. We make sure everything's being taken care of. We do have discretionary resources I can move throughout the city, where sometimes if you have to have some call-offs, or we certainly have an incident where you do have a major incident, like we have an officer that was killed in the line of duty, David Lee. That's going to take a lot of our resources. We got to shift those things around. So we look at them when we put them out, and we try to balance that. Downtown is no different. But downtown also has, because of all these venues and because of secondary and businesses, you have other areas that have additional offices. They're being used, and we're communicating with them. And then we're also able to put 5 officers on a shift, and Major Benoist has been able to move them around. And we do use overtime throughout the city. So I use, not just downtown, we use overtime. These majors and these captains, the commanders of the district, they have the discretion of using it in areas where we're seeing some trends, patterns or trends. We can send detectives on the burglary team out for additional hours. If they're doing steals at gas stations on Hampton Avenue, we'll make sure we set up surveillance. We use overtime in a proper manner. We manage it well. We put additional resources where needed. And then if we can get additional officers downtown, there's some that's paid by a grant. We use them downtown. They're able to move them everywhere. But we want to get back up to budgeted strength. So in the meantime, we want to make sure everybody knows we're doing smart, strategic and deployment by using all these tools in intelligence policing to make sure we have people in the right place. And I think a lot of it has been working. I think a lot of things have changed because the behavior's being changed because some of these bad guys or people that were doing things and not in the right way are now being held accountable. If you take downtown West, this area, from 2 years ago, we're down, I think, I don't have that sheet on me, but the last time I looked, it's about 38% reduction in overall crime from 2 years ago. So a lot of things you got to measure. What gets measured gets done. You have to have some barometer, and that's one of the things that we continue to look at. Do we have the officers in the right places? And not only are they in the right place, what are the officers doing when they're assigned to those areas? So if a crime does happen or something, the major's going to be talking about this in here. Where were our officers deployed? This lieutenant colonel is also going to be asking, including the chief, what happened? Where were the officers? Where were they assigned? What do we need to change? What are we looking at? What's your plan? And those are the type of things that in any police department, you take a look at the NYPD, 8 million people, they got 40,000 officers. They get less officers per capita than we do. And so the thing is, you have to strategically deploy people and try to be in the right areas when events are happening, or you can see, you get intelligence information to prevent other things that are happening. So you got to be very strategic. I wish I could put an officer on every corner, but nobody can afford that. No city can afford that. So we have to be smart. The leadership here has to make sure that we're giving good communication and good expectations of our officers and our other supervisors.
Guys, thank you very much. We
Chief, as we
appreciate your
weekend-
time, okay? Thank you.
Chief, as we prepare for this weekend, how,
Kelly,
Well,
we'll circle back. We have a couple other things that we have
Okay.
to work on, okay?
Thank you for that.